Well, he's nobody's fool, so he's playing it cool as can be. He'll give it a whirl.
Hello again, everyone. This is Steve Kallas. Speaking of sports, I'm here with Johnnie Kallas, Westchester County Post.com contributor, and we're here to preview the NBA Finals between the Miami Heat and the favored Los Angeles Lakers. Good to be with you, Johnny. I just want to point out a couple of things. I'll throw it over to you. This is the first matchup in the finals between two teams that did not make the playoffs last year for the first time in the history of the NBA, which is pretty interesting. Of course, when you look at the teams, I thought LeBron waved the white flag last year when he went to the Lakers. But they got Anthony Davis, and that was the plan, I guess, all along. And poof, here they are. I thought Jimmy Butler made a mistake by leaving the 76ers with Simmons and Embiid. But he knows more than anybody as it was amazing to me that they beat both the Bucks, who I thought were better than them, and the Celtics, who I thought were better than them. But they've really come together as a team. So we're going to talk about both teams, both sides. You go first, and then I'll chime in, and then we'll talk some more.
Sounds great, Steve. Good to be with you. So this is a really exciting series. Also, LeBron facing one of his former teams, who he obviously spent 4 years with, won 2 titles, lost 2 as well. And Pat Riley did it again with the Heat. Pat Riley has to go down, especially now with this team, has to go down as, arguably the greatest sort of coach-executive combination in NBA history. Jerry West is up there too, more as an executive, but Pat Riley is right up there with everybody. So it's pretty incredible. In terms of my analysis, I've liked the Lakers for a while. I like them in 7. I think the series is going 7 games, though. Just to go through the Heat, they're a lot deeper than the Lakers, right? So they have 7 guys who can really play. Jimmy Butler is kind of the heart and soul of the team, and he can kind of carry them through crunch time. But there have been a lot of other guys who have stepped up. Bam, obviously, in the clinching game against the Celtics. Hero has obviously been really good. Duncan Robinson plays like a 3-point winner, it seems like, every night. Iguodala's a former Finals MVP. Dragic, it looks like it's 10 years ago. He can sometimes score at will, and when they really need to score, he's the guy they go to. It's pretty incredible how good of a scorer he is. And then Jay Crowder is still, he's always been an excellent defender, and if he's shooting that 3-ball well, they're going to be really tough. Just a couple of points I want to make. I think the way the Heat get this game to get the series to 7 and even have a chance to win, even though I'm going with the Lakers, is they play this really effective zone defense at times that Spoelstra does a good job kind of mixing in and out of. And if they can keep the Lakers out of transition, the Lakers really are a transition team that's excellent on defense. But if you can keep them out of transition into their half-court offense, they're really just an above-average half-court offense. They have LeBron, they have AD, but their shooters are very streaky. This game will come down to, I think, or this series could come down to how good of KCP and Danny Green are shooting the ball. Danny Green's obviously been there before. Frankly, KCP has been the better player of late, but those 2 guys are going to have to be on. Does Dwight Howard guard Bam? Does Anthony Davis check Bam? Does Bam, somehow kind of equalize Anthony Davis? What's going to go on with that? I think that'll be a key sort of matchup between those big guys in the series. Can Howard be? I assume if Howard's on the court, he has to guard Bam because he can't really guard the perimeter, and all these other guys can shoot the ball for the most part. Jimmy Butler's not a great shooter, but he can make them when he has to, and Dwight Howard won't be guarding Jimmy Butler. So it'll be interesting to see how much the Lakers play in terms of Dwight Howard. Didn't play at all in the Houston series. Played a lot in the Nuggets series. I think in the Heat series, it'll be somewhere in between. But ultimately, I just think, and it's no longer the duo, I'd say the sort of triple threat of LeBron, Anthony Davis, and Rondo, who completely turned around this Lakers offense when he came back for the second round. I think that's going to be too much to overcome that championship experience. I think they're going to make enough shots when they have to, and LeBron will get it done, in my opinion, in a Game 7. I'll turn it over to you, and maybe we can talk about it for a little bit back and forth.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit the opposite way. I'm going to go the Heat in 6, and I'm picking 6 because I don't think the Heat will beat LeBron in the Game 7. But here's the reason why. I think Dragic is maybe the key to the whole series for Miami because he's played like it is 10 years ago. He's been unbelievable. Jimmy Butler was the leading scorer during the regular season, and in the last series against the Celtics, he wasn't the high scorer in any game. Dragic, as you said off the air, is their go-to guy. He's the guy who can make his own shot. You know, it's surprising when you think about the NBA and you talk about guys who can get their own shot. He can get it, and he can get it going to the basket or pull up threes. I mean, he's really been sensational. He's also playing for a contract, which always helps, even though I think he's 34 years old. But based on what we've seen, if you're the Heat, you want him back. I don't know on what kind of deal, but you certainly want him back. So I'm not sure that Rondo can guard him, even though Rondo kind of a defensive player. I'm not sure that Danny Green, who's their other, their guards are not great defensively. It's kind of Rondo and Danny Green. I will say this about Rondo. He's such a good player. He's such a good passer. It's just incredible. But I think it's going to be hard to stop Dragic. Other than that, Adebayo came of age. I heard Isaiah Thomas, of all people, the old Isaiah Thomas, the Pistons Isaiah Thomas. I heard him say that Anthony Davis and Adebayo are pretty much the same player, except Davis has a little more experience and he's a little longer. Now, that's not true. I mean, you can say what you want about Isaiah Thomas. Davis is one of the 5 best players in the league. The reason the Lakers are favored is because they got either number 1 or number 2 in LeBron, probably number 1 of late. I would agree with you. And Davis is certainly top 5. Put him wherever you want. And Bam Adebayo has come a long way. Both Kentucky guys, by the way, AD and Adebayo. But and he was awesome in the final game. I think he was 32 and 14. He made the block of the year in game 1. I thought he changed the series around on that Tatum dunk. Even though it was game 1, it preserved the victory. I thought that really did influence the entire series. And he went off, I think, in another game. He had a ton of points. Tyler Hero, who knows who he was, but now he's got 37 in the game. He's 20 years old. And maybe my favorite player, Duncan Robinson, because as you know, he went to Williams College, where your sister was. And when Gabriella was there, we went to a game, and I saw this guy 6'7", even then, as a freshman in college. And he made like 9 threes in a row in practice. I said to Gabriella, who's that guy? And a year later, you know the story, he went to Michigan, first D3 players to get a full scholarship to a D1 player. People didn't think he could play in the league, but it's a new league now. If you're 6'7" and can shoot the lights out, and he can shoot the lights out, there's not only a spot for him, he's a borderline star now. I did hear Mark Jackson, interestingly, and tell me if you heard this or you want to comment. Mark Jackson said that Duncan Robinson is one of the greatest shooters in the world right now and compared him in the same neighborhood as Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. And you know what? Percentage-wise, he's shooting 41% in the last series against the Celtics. It almost seems like not really a three-pointer when he shoots them. So he's got a very bright future, but he's very big for them now. 5 for 7 from 3 in the final game. Iguodala, as you know, another guy. I mean, you talk about championship experience. Iguodala took 5 shots, scored 15 points, 4 for 4 from 3, and the three-point play on the other, an old-style three-point play. So they've got a lot of, you're right, they have a lot of very, very good players, and they beat a team that I thought had more very, very good players than the Celtics, yet they were able to, again, beat them, I won't say easily, but beat them. And the other thing we didn't talk about is the coaching matchup. Vogel has never beaten Spoelstra in the playoffs. Obviously, he has the team now in the Lakers to beat him. But Spoelstra in his 5th NBA Finals, I understand, with 4 with LeBron. So he knows what that's like. And now on the other side, he's got this scrappy, gutty, fighting you to the finish. Crowder, another guy you talked about who's very good. They just have so many really good guys, and they have no fear. Jimmy Butler's the alpha male. Again, he surprised me. He must have gone to Philly and said, I can't win with these 2 guys. And that's Philly's problem now. They fired the coach. They got some issues. But he saw something, I think, in Miami, and I think it got even better because I don't think you thought that some of these guys, nobody thought Tyler Hero was going to be so good this year. And people thought, I think, Robinson was a good, not great three-point shooter. And I will point out that Mark Jackson, who said that, was the first guy when he was coaching Golden State. I bet he's sorry he lost that job. But he said when he was the coach of Golden State that the best shooting backcourt in the history of the NBA was Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, and they laughed at him. And now 2 years after that, he's no longer the coach. They win the championships, and nobody even fights that. I'd say maybe Jerry West and Gail Goodrich, but that's for another time. So I got the Heat in 6. I think they can do it. I know it'll be a big upset. I've seen a lot of people putting up, and these stats. They played twice during the regular season, but that was in November and December, and the Lakers beat them both games, and AD averaged 30 a game or whatever it was. We often say throw out the regular season records when it comes to the playoffs. This particular season, you throw it out even more than the normal just throw it out, because there's a game in November, a game in December, which is closer to a year ago now, and being in the same season is to me just totally ridiculous. So I'll leave it with there. I will say Jimmy Butler said LeBron is the test. As long as he's been in the league, and he's right, this is his 9th final in 10 years. I believe his 10th final overall. And I know we're going to talk about the legacy of LeBron, so I'll throw it over to you. But the thing I would say is he's taken some teams that had no business making the finals to the finals. So I don't think his legacy, which you're going to talk about, should be penalized because of that.
Yeah, and if I could just say before we talk about his legacy, just follow up on a few points you made that I just wanted to get in. Dragic, man, he's almost reminding me. He doesn't have anywhere near the handles, but he's almost reminding me of Kyrie with some of what he's able to do at the rim. Now, you're not going to be able to do that as much against the Lakers. You might be able to do that against the Celtics, and I know Tice is a good player, but you're not doing that against AD and Dwight Howard underneath. And you're going to have to pass out of that and hope you guys make some shots, because they're going to help off that. And Dragic, he's not going to just be able to score at will near the basket. And it's incredible he was doing that. I think in general, obviously, considering everything that's gone on, these have to be not only the 2 best teams in the league, the 2 mentally toughest team in the league, right? I do think that Miami does have the advantage. They clearly have adapted to the bubble atmosphere, but they have an advantage from the shooting point. I think a lot of these, especially younger guys, whether it's Hero, whether it's Robinson, even a guy like Jay Crowder, who hasn't been around but can be a bit of a streaky shooter, I think they have a little bit of an advantage not having to go on the road. So I don't know. Oftentimes those guys, they're not totally like others or just role players. They're better than that. But oftentimes those guys, especially when they're younger, their first playoff run, will do well at home in the playoffs, and then they'll really struggle on the road. They have the advantage. They don't have to worry about that. I'm not saying, once again, it's the mental toughness involved in this atmosphere. It's incredible what they've done, but they don't have to go into the Staples Center in, games 1, 2, 5, and 7 or whatever it would have had to be, right? They're at a neutral site, and I think that helps. And yeah, just on the Bam AD, to me, if Bam can somehow, like I said, I think I used the word, if he can somehow neutralize, which I don't think he can, Anthony Davis, then the Heat do win, because then you're talking about LeBron against like 5 really good players, and the Lakers just, I don't think, have the depth. I think AD's too good, and Bam does not. Maybe he'll develop it, but AD can score from. It's not only that he doesn't have a signature move; he can score from anywhere on the court. I mean, the guy's can be an incredible 3-point shooter at times. When he gets to the line, they were struggling from the line earlier. That's something else to watch. In the games the Lakers have lost, they shoot something like, it seems like 60, 65% from the line. In the games they win, they're closer to 75, 80. If they get to 75, 80, we know they're getting to the line. That's their game. If AD and LeBron can make their foul shots, I think that's a big thing as well. Anyway, so those were just a few other points I want to get in. I think it's totally fine to pick the Heat. It's been awesome seeing, talk about a real team, just how they've come together. A little bit reminiscent of sort of the Pistons from talk about they also beat a Lakers team. Shaq and Kobe were going through some stuff about 15 years ago. But I do like LeBron and Anthony Davis. I think they're just too much.
Okay, well then let's go right to LeBron's legacy. What's your sense of it? Again, his 9th finals in 10 years, his 10th finals overall. He's in the conversation for greatest player ever. He's on your top 4. He's on my top 4. But tell me what you think. Is this because they are heavily favored? They should, at least on paper, win. I think there's a decent chance they don't. But what do you think of LeBron's legacy, given these stats that he's incredible to make the finals?
Yeah, so I think LeBron is already number 2 in my book. If he gets this win, even though he has Anthony Davis leading a 3rd franchise as really the main guy to a championship, It'll make him 4-6 in the finals. I think it puts him right there with MJ. I still may have MJ as number one just because I think he was a much better scorer. He's 6-0 in the finals, kind of when you needed it. He's the guy who would take the shot. LeBron has had some great moments, kind of the key moments. I'm thinking about Kyrie's three. We'll see what happens in this finals. Have sometimes been other guys. And Jordan, yes, he's had to pass out of double teams, but if it was one-on-one, he was the guy taking the shot, and he was making it more often than not. So I still personally might have MJ higher, but if people, and I've heard, there are some Jordan fanatics out there. If people, especially if LeBron wins, thinks that it's still no longer a conversation, that somehow Jordan is still, way above LeBron, I think that's completely ridiculous. It just depends how you define greatness. I could go in on this, but I think there are 5 guys who could be the greatest of all time, depending on how you define it. I won't get into all that. But for me, LeBron leading 3 different franchises to a finals victory. Nobody else has done that. I don't think anybody else will. MJ never did it without Pippen, and even on The Last Dance, which was kind of an MJ, sponsored documentary, as great as it was, even he admitted it. He admitted that he never won without Scottie Pippen. And it's not like, once again, did MJ persevere and finally get over the bad boy Pistons? Yes, but that's also kind of when Scottie Pippen developed into an all-star and Hall of Fame caliber player. You can't kind of disconnect those two things. Has LeBron always had a great number 2? Absolutely, but it's been different guys each time. It shows that he makes everyone around him better. So I think the argument will be how you define greatness. The only thing I'll say is LeBron's going to keep playing after this, and coming out of this, whatever happens in this finals, they have to be one of the leading contenders next year. Though if they lose to the Heat, and then you'll have them losing to the Heat, which I think will be grouped into with LeBron losing to the Mavericks. Here's the last thing I'll say. Jordan never had to go up against a team like the Golden State Warriors or even the San Antonio Spurs, right? We've talked about this. He really never had to go up against a team that had more than 2 Hall of Famers in their prime. LeBron has had to go up against teams with 3 or 4 Hall of Famers in their prime, right? Huge difference. Yes, he had an easier road through the East, though people kind of overstate the difficulty of Jordan through the East. It's not like the East was great in the 90s. I love the Knicks, but it was Patrick Ewing and a bunch of guys who were hitting people. Love it. But let's not mistake that for one of the most talented teams in the history of basketball, right? So I do think, though, Jordan does not lose that Mavericks series. I don't think, I love the Mavericks, what they did that year. Jordan doesn't lose that, and I don't think Jordan would lose this series. So I do think that'll be a big argument against LeBron. But once again, I think it'll depend how you measure greatness. I have Jordan 1, LeBron 2. If LeBron wins, I think they're 1A, 1B, and it'll be kind of up to how you define greatness. I'll turn it over to you.
Well, no, I agree with everything you're saying, especially to see him play the way he has. Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek Freak, won the MVP. And it wasn't so much, to me, you could make a great case for him, but I agree with LeBron, the fact that it was like 86 votes to 16 first place votes, 86 for Giannis and 16 for LeBron. I thought it should have been closer. I thought it could have gone either way. I thought it was kind of maybe a 50-50 thing. But clearly, if you counted the bubble, which you didn't, and then counted the playoffs, which you never do, clearly LeBron is the MVP. And he's also, we didn't mention really his passing prowess, which he should, because he has such a player in AD that he can rely on, that I think he's always been a good passer. I think he's become even a better passer now. I have one final thing to say about, since you brought up the Knicks. I just want to talk briefly about Pat Riley. I've written articles, and I'm sure you know this, that Pat Riley might be the greatest coach in the history of any sport because of what he did to the league. He had the Showtime Lakers, 4 titles, I think he coached them to. And then he went to the Knicks and turned Patrick Ewing and a bunch of tough guys. He changed the way NBA basketball was played, from the Showtime Go-Go Lakers to, I always called it the rugby scrum Knicks. And the whole league had guys like Oakley and Anthony Mason beating up guys. And that's the only way Riley knew how to win. Now, he didn't get that job done in 94. That's a John Starks problem we'll talk about some other time. And I also didn't like what Riley did to Stan Van Gundy in Miami when he came in and fired him, took the coaching, and he won even another title. But just the sheer ability, I can't even name another coach in any sport who had the league one way, Go-Go, Showtime, and then turned it into a rugby scrum, two totally different styles of play. So I do think he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. And I know people say in basketball, Jackson, Red Auerbach, etc., but nobody did what he did literally to the whole league. And now, as you said, he's become a master. Spoelstra, I couldn't really tell that he was a really good coach when you have LeBron and, you're winning 2 titles, you're in 4 finals, you're 2-2. But since then, he's been a good coach. And now to me, he's become, he's arguably the coach of the year. Again, when you look at it on the whole, my problem with a lot of these regular season awards is they're regular season awards. And then by the time they gave them out this year, which was stupid, we knew who the MVP was. But that was the bubble and the playoffs. So I agree with you on LeBron. I don't think he's past Jordan. I have my own favorite in Oscar, which we've already done a video on that. So we won't go into that again. But yeah, that's my thoughts. LeBron legacy, he has a superb legacy no matter what happens. You'll always have Jordan 6-0, 6 finals MVPs. But as everybody, including Jordan, points out, nothing without Scottie Pippen, who's one of the 50 greatest players of all time. So when we talk about LeBron and AD, top 5 today, you talk about Jordan and Pippen. Pippen to me is probably maybe top 20 of all time, but that's all time. That's not this year or last year. So any final thoughts, Johnny? You like the Lakers in 7. I like Miami in 6. Anything to wrap it up?
Yeah, just the other thing I'll say is I think and I'll let you have the final word. We went from Jordan to, we have to throw in obviously sort of Kobe, if we're not talking about centers, Kobe, and then to LeBron in terms of whose league it's really been. And it's interesting because LeBron's done it for longer, and all due respect to Kareem, and he did miss some years in college that LeBron was able to gain directly in the NBA. But LeBron's done it for longer than Kareem did at a higher level, at least, I would say. So LeBron, he's still the guy going into next year, and he could be for a couple of years. But it's interesting who kind of takes it over from there. And I think a lot of people are saying Kawhi, though Kawhi's starting to get into his 30s, I believe. To me, it's kind of between Giannis and Luka. And I just want folks to remember, everyone is saying Giannis, like, he can't win in the playoffs. They play that 4 across. Absolutely. But just remember, Michael Jordan had a hard time winning. And then he, became a better basketball player. Not just, he was always talented, but became a better basketball player, became a greater player, and got Pippen. So if Giannis can get another guy, I'm not saying he's going to, have 2 3-peats, but he's going to get his. And I think the interesting thing about Luka, the guy's 20. It's unbelievable what he did. Can he, go even beyond what Harden does? Because to me, they're very similar players. Harden has had a hard time winning for a variety of reasons. I think the NBA, yes, Zion, and there's other guys who could come. It's interesting to see who will take that mantle. There's always somebody. And to me, I think Giannis, Luka, it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top between those two. I'll leave the last word to you.
Yeah, well, it's a great point. I think maybe we'll do something after the finals and we can talk about Giannis as next year is his walk year. He's always said in the past, I want to stay in Milwaukee. I love Milwaukee. He's kind of a small town guy, grew up in Nigeria, then went to Greece. And he's not really like, we'd love to see him on the Knicks, but he's not really like a big city guy. Having said that, I think if he goes through a similar experience next year, he might say, I want to win. And I'm not saying he's going to the Knicks, but he might go somewhere else. But we can talk about that another time. I think this really is almost the LeBron legacy finals. Because if he does win this one, 3 different teams, that's incredible. And you also know how bad the teams are when he leaves those teams. They're like horrific the next year. So that says a lot about him. So Johnnie Kallas, Lakers in 7, Steve Kallas, Miami in 6. This is Steve Kallas speaking of sports, along with Westchester County Post.com contributor Johnnie Kallas. We'll see you the next time.